sole owner of Zapata Offshore Oil. Zapata Offshore's oil rigs just happened to be positioned right in the middle of CIA operations in the area 30 miles north of Cuba near Cay Sal, an island used by the CIA for supplying the various terrorist raids of Operation 40, Operation Mongoose, Alpha 66, and the rest of these murderers against Cuba. Let me repeat that. Bush left his job, being trained in the oil business by a CIA recruiter, and went to work on his own, setting up shop right in the middle of the CIA's misguided anti-Castro Cuban operations. Really, that should sort of settle the question. 3 pieces of undisputed, solid evidence that our George Bush was working for the CIA in the Caribbean. And this is the big stuff. But there's more. The assassins of Operation 40, the misguided anti-Castro Cubans of the Hoover Memo, were supervised on the front lines by E. Howard Hunt. Hunt got this job because he was previously a first-level supervisor of the Bay of Pigs invasion. The secret code name for the Bay of Pigs invasion was Operation Zapata. Operation Zapata? Zapata offshore? Now, you could fairly ask what kind of idiot would give a secret operation a secret code name and name it after his own company that was operating in the area. What kind of idiot? George Bush, that's what kind of idiot. In World War II, Bush named his plane after his wife, the Barbara II. When this plane was shot down, what do you suppose he named his next plane? Did you guess it? The Barbara III. While the CIA was preparing for the Bay of Pigs invasion, the CIA ordered a large ship from the Navy to carry guns and tanks and men to the Bay of Pigs invasion. But no one was supposed to know that this was a U.S. Navy ship. The world was supposed to believe that these were just private citizens of Cuba. So it was necessary to disguise the ship and to change the name. The name was changed to the Barbara. Now, this is not a big deal, it's a small deal, but it's there. Bush has a habit of naming things in his military career after things in his personal life. He named 2 planes after his wife, and one of the 3 CIA ships at the Bay of Pigs was renamed the Barbara. It's a small piece that just happens to fit perfectly with the bigger picture of Bush as a CIA officer working with anti-Castro Cuban terrorists. This same habit of naming things in his military career after things in his personal life links Bush's oil company, Zapata Offshore, to Operation Zapata and to the anti-Castro Cuban terrorists. But again, let's not overemphasize this name stuff. Finding the name of Bush's wife on a CIA supply ship, or finding the code name for the Bay of Pigs invasion on his oil company, is a small but clear detail of this much bigger picture. The big picture shows us that at the same time that Hunt moved from working inside Harriman's office to go to the CIA where he supervised at the CIA's invasion of Cuba, at the same time that Richard Bissell moved from working inside Harriman's office to go to work for the CIA where he became the director of planning for the Bay of Pigs operations, at the very same time, the oldest son of Harriman's closest associate went to work in the exact same outdoor office where Hunt and Bissell were now operating. Hoover's memo names George Bush as a CIA supervisor of the Bay of Pigs invaders, the anti-Castro Cubans. The evidence for this is simply overwhelming. There can be no reasonable doubt about this connection. George Bush was working for the CIA, assisting their operations at the Bay of Pigs, working for Bissell, working with Hunt, working with Sturgis, supervising the CIA's misguided anti-Castro Cuban groups. His supervision of Hunt and the others at the Bay of Pigs is a key piece of evidence linking him to the assassination, but it is not Bush's only connection to Hunt and the other suspects. After Bush got beaten up, losing 2 elections for Senate, Nixon rescued him from defeat and humiliation by bringing him into the White House, trailing E. Howard Hunt behind him. Haldeman says no one seems to know who brought Hunt into the White House. But it's not hard to figure out, because not only did Hunt and Bush come to work in the White House at exactly the same time, but no one else in the White House had any connections to CIA operations. No one had any connections. While Bush, on the other hand, was directly involved in the same CIA operations in the same area at the same time that Hunt was. How can you possibly explain the connection between these people? Do these men have anything in common? The answer is either no, they all came together in 1970 for no apparent reason, or the answer is this one. They all met on the same road to power. And there's more to the Nixon-Bush-Hunt connection than that they all came together at the same time in the same place. Remember when Hunt was sitting in jail demanding that Nixon pay him $2 million in hush money or he'd start talking? Hunt got paid. The money came from this man, Bill Leitke, Bush's oldest, closest, and most important business partner. Leitke helped Bush found Zapata Offshore. Then, in 1959, when the CIA needed the company, Leitke handed the company to Bush, made Bush the sole owner so that Bush could carry out secret operations without any outside observers getting in the way. The fact that Bush's closest business partner paid Hunt the hush money is just one more connection between Hunt and Bush. It's starting to get ridiculous. Hunt's mother is not so thoroughly connected to Hunt. But now we'll look at a couple of pieces of strange evidence that, while they don't connect Bush to the killers, do connect him to the assassination in ways that can only be described as weird. This is George de Mohrenschildt. He was a wealthy, Russian-born Texas oil man who liked to party with minimum-wage clerks. He helped get Oswald a job at the Dallas School Book Depository. Of course he was CIA. It seems that de Mohrenschildt was not in on the assassination and that he was just following orders when he got Oswald the job at the School Book Depository. Listen to his description of Oswald.
He definitely was not an enemy. He was an admirer of President Kennedy. And we raised that question several times.
He didn't believe Oswald hated Kennedy. This supports the other evidence we've seen that Oswald was in fact an FBI agent who was spying on the CIA for the FBI and who had infiltrated the CIA's misguided anti-Castro Cuban killers. De Mohrenschildt was planning to tell the congressional investigators what he knew about Oswald and the assassination. The night before he was to be questioned by the investigators for the Senate Committee on Assassinations, his head was blown off with a shotgun. In his pocket at the time was an address book, and in his address book was this entry: Bush, George H.W., Poppy, his family nickname, 1412 West Ohio, also Zapata Petroleum, Midland. By itself, this proves nothing. Taken in context, however, it is one more amazingly direct connection between Bush and the assassination. Okay, it's clear enough Bush was in the CIA, beyond a doubt. He was connected with the killers, beyond a doubt. But suppose he was one of the good guys at CIA. There are such people. Colby was one. Maybe Bush was like Colby, a good guy who worked with the killers while they were carrying out operations that the president actually had ordered, but someone who the killers had to get rid of when they were committing terrible crimes not approved by the president. Maybe Bush was a good guy, like Fletcher Prouty. The day of the assassination, Prouty, who was the Pentagon's top liaison with the CIA, was sent to the South Pole to babysit some diplomats. Maybe the bad guys sent Bush on vacation the day they killed Kennedy to get him out of the way. Well, this document shows different. This FBI document records that, on the day of the assassination, at 1:45 p.m., 1 hour and 15 minutes after the shooting, Bush was already involved in trying to misdirect the FBI in their efforts to catch the killers. This document records that Mr. George Bush telephonically furnished the following: that he recalled hearing in recent weeks, the day and source unknown, that one James Parrott had been talking of killing the president when he comes to Houston. Date and source unknown? How could you not remember when or where you heard someone say that he was going to kill the president? It's little wonder, then, that this FBI agent took time from the busiest day of his career to record this screwy phone call. He wanted to be sure to record the name and occupation of this very suspicious caller. And we see, then, that Bush was not out of town on vacation. He had not been sent to babysit some penguins at the South Pole. He was actively involved in matters related to the assassination. And, out of his own mouth, he was in Dallas on the day that Kennedy was killed. When questioned about this FBI document, Bush said that he does not recall making the phone call. Now, wait 1 minute. Everyone in the country can tell you exactly where they were and what they were doing when Kennedy was killed. He was busy calling the FBI to misinform them, but he doesn't remember? His failure to recall such dramatic events puts him into a unique club. Like Nixon and Hunt, he can't seem to remember the events of November 22, 1963. By itself, this claim of Bush's that he cannot remember such a fabulously significant event in his life, with no other evidence, would be terribly incriminating. But this incredible memo does not stand by itself. It's only a small part of this mountain of evidence connecting Bush to every single aspect of the assassination: planning, execution, and cover-up. No one, not Connally, not Hunt, not Nixon, not Sturgis, not Prescott, not Dulles, no one on the planet could possibly have better credentials as a suspect in the murder of John F. Kennedy than George Herbert Walker Bush. The scale in this case is tipped past a certain critical point. The probability that he was involved is genuinely beyond a reasonable doubt. The Hoover memo is not circumstantial evidence. It is direct, eyewitness, smoking gun evidence from the most influential figure in the history of American law enforcement. The rest of the evidence merely provides a context for this memo that makes it impossible to reasonably believe that the former president was not involved in the murder of John Kennedy, acting as a frontline operative for
the military-industrial complex,
which Kennedy had asked the United Nations to help him destroy.
A steady reduction in force, both nuclear and conventional, until it has abolished all armies and all weapons.
There would have been no war in Vietnam. Bush's crime, ripping this man from us and delivering us back into the hands of the military-industrial complex, is one of the great acts of treason in all recorded history. If we could present this evidence to a patriotic jury in Texas, they would certainly give him the death penalty for what he stole from the American people. When I was just a little fool, my mama sent me off to a place called school. Liked the part about taking a nap, it seemed everything else was a load of crap, no fooling. Taught us George Washington chopped down the cherry tree so we could all have freedom, justice, and liberty. Did I mention Columbus discovered America? Well, I went off to college, and believe it or not, the harder I studied, the dumber I got. Taught us we was all geniuses, folks back home was asses, and elites like us ought to rule the masses. Some schooling. Had to drop out, though. Just couldn't seem to get my shoulders inside my patootie. Got slapped in the face. No, it couldn't have been ruder by a friend with a film by a guy named Zapruder. Showed Kennedy's brains getting blown out the back. Seems the Warren Commission was hooked on crack. And the FBI, and every newspaper and television and radio on God's green earth. Well, the day JFK got blown away, old George Bush was in the CIA in the wee house.